generic, believe what we believe. Celigo, OpenAI, Thomas Neal is the controller, Lynn Zimick at OpenAI, director of accounting. These folks are operating with AI every day. They're at the forefront of AI and accounting, and we are going to learn their secrets right now. Parker, I don't know why you're here, but he's our CEO and co-founder. He's the vision behind all this. I will say, I did not join this company to be in closed management. I joined this company for what we're doing. Parker sold me on that vision, and I'm super excited to be here tonight. My previous experience was in public accounting. Unconventional, but I spent 21 years at EY. I decided that after seeing what y'all did for all the years after you left public accounting, I missed out on a lot of time. And I knew I wanted to work for another 15 to 20 years. I looked at sort of everyone's LinkedIn profiles and my network and was like, man, they are doing some really cool shit. And so I wanted to get a taste of that. Everyone that I talked to said, please don't go to another firm. You need to come to the other side because you care about people, you care about accounting. And so Parker sold me on the vision of this company, and I'm super happy to be here. So we should get into.
Can I tell a quick story about this? Chris joined being a partner, and was not the typical person we've ever hired at Numeric. Came to me a lot of 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, folks who have worked at other startups. So kind of our UI is about the opposite. And I just want to say that sort of when I knew Chris was going to crush it at Numeric, and he accepted his offer and agreed to come up to a sales offset we were having, when he hadn't met anyone on the sales team. And he shows up, and the first thing he says is, "Can I step in the bunk room?" And you look around, and it's like you can tell the first day he's sort of just getting a sense of what the hell is going on, you know. And then by the second day, he's chopping it up, and you can just tell there's this sort of level of comfort and excitement and energy. And I think by the time we finished the essay, he was the one sort of leading the charge and getting people fired up about what they're doing and talking about his experience and sharing the stories. And it's just been a pleasure working with him. But what a big transition. It's been so fun to work with him and you. So this was fun.
That was way nicer than I thought you were going to. All right, so let's get into it, okay? So I already told you where they're from and their names, so we're gonna get personal. First question, real quick. What is your favorite fun but non-accounting way to use AI?
I have little kids. I have a 1 and 3-year-old. And so at Christmas time, I don't know if everyone noticed that ChatGPT had a Santa voice. And so the speech-to-speech, you could turn on Santa mode, and you could say, "Hey Santa, can you remind Julian that if he wants to see you in a couple weeks, he really needs to go to bed." And then Santa would come in and go, "Ho, ho, ho, Julian," and this whole thing. And so that is my best parenting hack. But I lately have been trying to use it to be funnier, because I'm not funny at all. And so anytime I have to write a speech for a wedding or a roast for a birthday party or anything that involves creativity with a bit of wit and charm, that is my go-to secret sauce.
Yeah, so getting personal, I'm the world's proudest girl dad. I have a little daughter, and I just love her to death. And every night we have a bedtime routine. She gets to pick 3 things that we do. One of them has to be that she reads me a book, and then I either read her a book, tell her a story, or we sing a song together. And I really like when she'll choose a story. Problem is, I make horrible storytelling. I just am not creative enough. I'm an accountant after all. So she put the nix to that pretty quick. No, Dad, I don't want to hear a story. I don't want to hear a story. Finally, a light bulb went off. Well, I bet ChatGPT could write me a really good story. And so I started using that, and I was transparent. She knew that's what I was doing. I went from being the complete loser storyteller to the hero of story time. She brags to her friends about how amazing my stories are and makes sure to emphasize, well, he doesn't write them, he just uses ChatGPT, which is great. But the icing on the cake is after every story, then I ask ChatGPT to generate me a coloring page. And I go downstairs and I print out the coloring page and I leave it on the table for her. So when she wakes up in the morning or making her breakfast, she has a coloring page to remember the story that we read together, and then she colors it. And it's a little bit more peace and quiet as we get to make breakfast. So I think it's a pretty amazing use case.
Parker, are we going to learn about the kid that you don't have?
That's what I was saying, yeah. I don't have anything this way. That's like the best example I've ever heard. ChatGPT got me out of a pickle recently when my car broke down, and I couldn't get the start. I was halfway to Colorado, and it was like, why don't you try pushing both pedals, put the handbrake on, and turn the steering wheel, and it worked. And I was like blown away. It was like, yeah, with this model of Subaru, like sometimes blah 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 happens, so like try this shit, and that blew my mind. It's to like never something I would ever try.
It's super useful. I did not know you had a Subaru. It's awesome.
Thanks, man. Appreciate that.
Learning something new. I sit right across from him, but we haven't talked cars yet. I'm an Accord guy. So I looked through my history. It was pretty disappointing. Other than the business entries, like those are pretty fun. I actually use it for work. Everyone does, I think. But it looked like over the last month, I spent a lot of time doing gopher hunting. So you take the picture of the gopher hill, and then it tells you which direction you should put the plug in, and then you try to kill it. After like the fourth attempt, it was like, I thought we killed this like 2 weeks ago. What is wrong with you? And then the other thing is DIY plumbing. So no, this is not like plumbing like, vibe coding data pipelines for our platform. This is plumbing like fixing toilets and getting earrings out of showers. So that is the fun stuff that I'm doing. I'm a guy of 3 also, so yeah. All right, let's get into the real stuff here. Lynn, Thomas, can you each share one way your team is using AI in accounting? So this is the non-parenting way. It's making a real difference. It can be in process, it can be a futuristic case, something you're developed, or something that is actually live.
Maybe I'll share the thing that we're building right now that I'm really excited about is thinking about any process that you have that can be done or is currently done by a person, how we're going to build an automated workflow to do it. And it's not just going to be like a workflow of go put this automation. It's going to be, all right, at this certain time, everything is running asynchronously, and then just pitches it back to the end user who wants to manage the review. So we're working on it right now with our team. We have a lot on our plate, but that's the thing I'm most excited about building. Day to day in our close process, we're using it. My probably favorite use case right now is using it to help us write Python scripts. None of us have coding backgrounds, but I think almost every person on our team has had ChatGPT teach it how to use Python to write scripts to pull massive amounts of data to map them for specific types of entries. So our auditors love it. It's audit proof. People perform it really easily, and it's saved us tons of time stitching together huge manual files that end up breaking off.
At the risk of going off script, why is it auditable?
Because it can be performed so easily.
Lead into it.
So yeah, we've been working a lot at Celigo. Being an automation company, we do have a dedicated AI team. We have an AI committee, which I get to sit on as well. And so there's a lot of interesting stuff that's being built. But I think one of the most interesting, or I guess just kind of light bulb moments for me in the last month was actually my boss, our CFO, kind of went to me and our AI developer and said, hey, I want to develop something. I keep hearing about agentic AI. I want to make something myself. So we sat in his office for about an hour, and we used our product to build a very simple workflow that was like, hey, go to his email, and then go to OpenAI, and then take out all of the solicitations that he needs, which is like 100 a day. And we all can use filters for that, but it just really like sparked something like, well, wait a second. If you can do that, and you can have it launch itself, what about AR inquiries? What about AP inquiries? And so the first one we leaned into is AR. And so we set up or mapped that same workflow, and then we added in Salesforce, and we added in NetSuite. So then it goes in, it reads all of our AR emails that are coming in, figures out who the customer is, goes and pulls all the pertinent data that we marked that we want from NetSuite, right? Like how long do they take to pay us, what's their statement of accounts, and pulls back an open invoice if they have one, or if they name an invoice number, just pulls it over. Does the same thing Salesforce, goes and finds a signed contract, pulls it over, and then it reviews every single conversation that we've ever had with them in the AR inbox and summarizes it at the top, and then it takes a stab at drafting the email. And it's still like a work in progress. It's not perfect, but it's starting to work. And we keep molding it. One of my favorite parts about it, and this came from our AI team, was that, it's not like, hey, when you see this, do this. It's not a hard-coded rule. We built a repository where we put policies and FAQs and training documents that specifically the AI goes and reads. And so if we ever have a change in policy or change how we deal with certain situations, we can just go update those docs, and then automatically that workflow continues to work, rather than having to go back to the automation team like, hey, you need to tweak the workflow for me. And that's something that we're starting to put live in every single automation that we do, is that kind of repository mindset. So I think that's the one that I thought was kind of the most fun recently. And it started out as something pretty basic that I was kind of laughing at our CFO, like, really, this is what we're going to spend 2 hours doing today? But then it blossomed into something that was actually really cool.
Anyone can actually do that. You can plug in ChatGPT into your Gmail and then just try to respond to any email that you get. I have it on right now, and it's like saved to me. There's so many emails you get, you're like, I can't respond to this. It'll do that for you in just 15 seconds.
So you basically would let it sit in your inbox. If it was you doing it, it would just sit there until you were inspired to do it. But because there's something drafted, it'll just be like, oh, that's good enough. Let's go. Okay.
Yeah, and then on ours, right, like it just sits in draft. So then my team, my AR team, rather than coming in and having to do all that work and having to write an email, they just look at the draft and they can kind of clean it up. And it also helps keep the tone extremely consistent across all the different people who might touch that email inbox as well.
Okay, so like you guys are talking about things that you've adopted that are working, right? I think like maybe not everyone is like as far along on that adoption curve. How do you guys think about like adopting different types of solutions? What is that journey for you and your teams? It's not overnight, I assume. It's got to be iterative.
Yeah, I think it does have to be iterative, and kind of in that example, it's for us. It's trying first. We have a lot of like hackathons or brainstorm sessions, whatever you want to call them, where we all sit down. Well, I guess I can back up one more than that. First, it's educating, right? But like, hey, I've been using this for a while. I'm trying to lean into it as much as I can. Team, here's all the different AI tools that we have. Here's all the use cases we've found so far. Now let's brainstorm, right? And having the time and creating that safe space where you can have those conversations and try to figure that kind of stuff out. And some really amazing things will come out of it, stuff that you just never would have even thought of. But tackling it in that iterative manner, I think, is what has been extremely key, of taking really small, easy pieces and adding to it. Like with the AR one, I mean, it just started as like, hey, go summarize emails, right? And then we're like, all right, now let's add the next one. Now, those are all different iterations that went along as we started to see success in it. And I mean, if we didn't see success in it early on, then it wasn't that huge of an investment, and we could have changed courses if we needed to.
Then for the Python scripts, right? I mean, imagine you don't just like write the script and then you just like set it to go, right? Like you have to test it and how do you know it's working, right?
Yeah, there's definitely some iteration going on, but I want to just say, like, yes, same way on thinking of iteration, right? It's like phase 1 is just like getting everyone a license. Phase 2 is like, okay, what now can we do? Is it like there's easy admin stuff, and interview notes, performance reviews, all that kind of stuff that everyone is using. And the next phase is going to go through and thinking through all of the things we call the anti-to-do list. Like, what do we have to do we don't want to do? That takes up so much time every month, right? And so it's going through and saying, okay, let's look at this list of things that are really painful, high volume, lots of time, and let's like work backwards from there and think through what kind of workflow could we build, what kind of operator agent could we build for this. So some of the things we've done is having, it's kind of called Taylor that we're working on internally, that we're a very Slack-heavy company, and so people don't like to go and find things on internal websites or even emails. So Taylor is being built into Slack, so you can ask Taylor anything. So one specific one we built was around T&E procurement. So instead of having to go in Zip and find your PO and type that out and go search in all these different places for it, you just ask the specific Taylor bot, say, what's that PO that I opened a couple weeks ago? How much spend is left on it? Can you move me the original document? So it's all about making the experience easier for everyone that we interact with across the company.
That's amazing. So, I mean, I think the framework is really useful, right? I think it's like get started with basic stuff and then figure out what you can do. Once it's embedded, once it's like up and running, how do you think about accuracy, controls, compliance? Like, what is the standard for before the things that you're building are allowed to touch a ledger or a source of truth or a system of record that like can make its way into your financial statements. Like, how do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I think about it the same way you think of any other automation you would build, right? You know, when you first connected Workday to Oracle or NetSuite or whatever your ERP is, you were doing the manual calculations of the same track, right? You were making sure that the calcs were flowing correctly from Workday, and that was going to make it eventually into your journal entry. So I think of it the same way, right? Test but verify, and keep doing tests and sampling as you need to validate the accuracy of it. It's not that much more complex, though, than building out that automation.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that, I think one of the keys, and Christian said it in the very beginning, for me is you just never automate the bad process. And as you touched on, finding those right processes. There's a lot of processes that aren't ready, and you got to do a lot of work to get them ready first. Once you identify that process, then I always look to identify the happy path, right? What is that pretty much already automated, no-touch path, like in the perfect world, if you had someone enter, a sales contract just right, and it kind of flows through everything, and no one has to touch it, and it doesn't mess up. Once you identify that happy path, that should make up at least 50% of your transactions. If not, your process probably isn't ready, or you haven't really found the happy path. Start with the automation there. It's going to be the easiest, lowest lift as far as the automation is concerned. And if you do automate that, it saves up a lot of time. Like I said, if it's 50% of transactions, you just freed up 50% of someone's time, which then means they have the time to do that verification that you need to do to make sure before it goes live. The other one I would really touch on is just testing. Testing is so important. I've worked with so many accounting teams that I just don't think really understand what a true testing cycle looks like. And it's like they think UAT is like it. And no, there's a lot of stuff that comes before UAT, right? You have like conference room pilot where you have the discussions, you get all your use cases, you get all your scenarios that you're going to need to test that you're trying to solve for. You have your systems integration testing where you have everything connected in a sandbox, and you actually start testing some of those with people who are very competent in all the systems. Then you have your UAT. And then even after UAT, then it's super important you have smoke testing and hypercare. And once again, you've just saved a lot of people time, so they should be able to review all of this and make sure that there's no massive defects that are out there that could sneak into the system that in the end are going to go to the ledger, right? And so I always want to make sure that anything it goes through that full testing cycle and has that hypercare and all those eyes on it. And another thing to think about is, what does that new process look like? How is that going to be overseen? I don't want someone looking at it every day. That kind of defeats the purpose, right? So one of the big automations we're working on right now is end-to-end order management to license provision. There's like no touch. Contract gets signed within 1 hour, license is provisioned, customers live, and there's no human interaction. It's a lofty goal. We're not even close. We just started it, right? But what I see is when we talk to the team about how it's going to be developed is, well, first it's like, well, if it sees an error, it gives you an error log. And it's like, that's not what I want. I want the automation to log every single data point that is going to impact the outcome of my accounting or my commissions or my journal entries, whatever, however it's going to flow through the system, right? There's certain information I'm not as worried about. But it needs to track all of that from from your CPQ to your signed quote to your Salesforce data or CRM data that you have it, and then finally to the sales order in your system, finally to the invoice. And check it all, and even if it's all accurate, I still want it in that database, and then I want to run analytics on that database to look for outliers, and anything that doesn't have a data match, my team comes in the morning, and that's what they're looking for. That's what they're focusing on. And hopefully, if you get the happy path right, if you get the automation right, there's not that much that they have to look at, right? And then on top of that, they're going to do a testing approach where they're still sampling things that look completely right, just because they should, right? Making sure that it's still working. So thinking ahead far enough of how you're going, what it really looks like in the end state. I agree, right? I mean, AI is amazing. I think there's a ton we're going to be able to do with it. But at least for me, I'm not comfortable with not having a good, thought-through human review element, at least at this point.
Okay, so I'm hearing don't automate that process, develop ways to identify anomalies, so maintain that data and search it. I want to ask Parker, with my auditor hat on, which I know I've been told I'm not allowed to do too much at work, but so how do we make sure that numeric is not sort of automating bad data faster?
Yeah. I'll answer that. And I have one question for you guys. I think what we sort of we try a lot of stuff. I think there are things that sort of internally we have interesting ideas about places where we think AI can help make think we need to sort of gauge information and sort of believe around where it will have an impact on accounting processes and where it will not. And I think the thing we obviously want to do every time is that you are hamstrung by the quality of information in your system. If you are not tagging, like, I remember one day we signed with a customer, they're super excited about running Flux explanations and using it to generate insights. And then they come to us and they're like, well, I can't see anything by vendor because we don't tag anything by vendor. You know, and it's like okay, it's like it's not gonna be as good, you know. Like
Magic wand.
So I think that's sort of like, I think a lot of these sort of questions cut to like, okay, well, what do accounting roles look like, what do systems look like in the future? Like, I think there's sort of a couple of key things there. That, one is it certainly like, it comes back to the data quality, the architecture of the systems, and I think so much more of the work of accountants will be around these automating processes and around sort of pushing the work upstream, right? So the goal should always be like, what are we seeing downstream? What does the business need? What do our finance counterparts need? What do departments need to make decisions? How do we take that information and get as close to those people as possible? And how do you use that context to inform what's in our ERP, what's in our data ledger, what data are we passing between systems? How do we get the richness that we need? Because like, the AI tools are getting way better. They're so good at the underlying insights and synthesis and helping you sort of understand what's happening and searching and retrieving. But like, it also comes back to that sort of foundation, which is like, if you haven't set up your systems, if you're not really focused on architecture, you're probably not going to maximize the use of the tools. And I think so much of the job will shift to working on it. I think a lot of what we've built continues to sort of speak to that question. Just like we don't like I don't think we should, as a company or product, be striving to better inform Alex explanations, trying to parse vendors out of vendors or things. I think we should help you build a tool to say to populate vendors into these 80 fields that are missing. You know, how do we help you build the system for those tools to do this work? But I want to ask you guys a question, if you don't mind, which is I think sometimes some of the risks of these conversations is like one of the takeaways can be like AI can do everything. You know, it's like what's the solution? AI. Like I have a nail, AI is a hammer, like whatever it is. It's like go more AI. Like are there places where you have either tried to solve things and then realized like either AI isn't the right tool for this, or like the models aren't there yet, but like you think they're getting there? Because I think I would love to learn if there's sort of some examples where you've had to sort of like take a step back and say, actually, we need something else. We need a person, we need software. Something that isn't sort of it's the wrong solution.
For a long time I was saying we don't need more software, we just need to build it, our own tools, and I have eaten my words on that front. There are some things that are just like it can't do that. It can't build an entire lease schedule based on one little document and then put it all the way up through the ledger for eternity. So there's definitely a lot of use cases where we still need numeric, other types of software to help us do things. But I think where the real value comes that the AI is never going to be able to do is the like business part. Like finding out what's important to people, and like OpenAI changes every day. There's news that I don't know about until it hits the news. And so it's like the hearing about what is happening, so I can go and like track down the details to figure out how we can operationalize it. Because at the end of the day, the business, I don't have any impact on that. All I have to do is figure out how to make sure it enters into our financial records appropriately. So it's all about the relationship we build along the way.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the human element's real, and I think I always do envision accountants moving forward to the data science, the system architecture, and data architecture type mindset. And I think that's kind of what the future accountants need to look like. But that human relation part and the collaboration and the trust that you can build cross-functionally, I mean, those kind of decisions and those kind of conversations are what are meaningfully moving executive teams at companies, right? I mean, that's something that AI is just not, I don't think will be able to do. I do think that there's a lot of stuff AI can do. I do think that AI has a lot of limitations. I think specifically LLMs have a lot of limitations, but it is just insane how fast they're progressing, and you can notice it. And so even if you're not a super strong believer, even if you find something that AI can't do now, like don't turn your back on it, right? I mean, keep watching what's coming out. And the build versus buy question is always at the forefront. Because, we say AI, I say automation a lot, and because of most of the automations I built, it's not just purely AI. I'm not just like creating a prompt and letting it run. There's a lot of other pieces that have to go into that, and other systems that you have to build that type of architecture. And there's a lot of times when we start looking at what it's going to take to build that, and there's already someone out there that's doing it really, really well. And it doesn't make sense to try to build that from scratch. It's not just like, oh, well, I have an AI license, so now I can do that too. No, it's not. It's not quite that simple. There's some simple stuff that we all can do, but some of the really big game-changing stuff out there is still being built and still isn't ready for prime time yet.
I just want to add one note to your confidence with these schedules. I think like that's something candidly like we tried in the sense we try all sorts of things, and I think we kind of like to liken that to like shooting a half of a basketball shot, which is like it will go in sometimes, but like infrequently, and you'll miss it in different ways. And there's a really important element in accounting, which is like these paths should be deterministic. You need to get the same output every time. AI is really good at routing things to the right place. It's really good at saying that looks like a lease. Like, let's get some data out of that lease, but it's really bad at generating debits and credits from it consistently and repeatedly. So I think there's sort of like, I think there's a lot that continues to sort of show in terms of numerics being built with many products where there's that sort of like intersection of like, how do you combine LLMs in the right place at the right time. But I think in accounting especially, where the correctness, the accuracy, the complexity of like the actions and the operations, a lot of it's like there's a lot of just like really good software.
Yeah, no, I think of it the same way. There's AI, there's code that like processes information in a finite, like calculated way, and there's humans making decisions. And some of these tasks, it's like how many times do you have to insert code and human in order to get the outcome that you want? And so with the emphasis on software and human, let's shift gears to humans. So we want the right personas working in our companies. Like, how do you guys think about the profiles that thrive in an AI-forward team? What characteristics do you guys look for in interviews that show like true AI fluency versus like the surface level stuff, like basically using it as a search engine?
The biggest one is just curiosity, right? Like tell me how you're using it in your workflows, even in your personal life. I love to ask people like, what's your favorite use case? How you started, Chris? And just kind of seeing how people have reacted over the last couple of years. It has changed even since I joined OpenAI a year and a half ago. Even still though, I'll still get people that say, or my company doesn't allow it. And so, don't hold it against people, that's okay. Not everyone has seen the light yet. But if that's the case, what are you doing to help get caught up with the tools, right? Because we're all in, obviously, it's our bread and butter, and so there's really high bar for how we expect people to think about using the tools creatively, and it's part of our DNA. So you have to be able to kind of explain to me how, even if you're not allowed to use it at work for whatever reason, how you are trying to become AI fluent on your own.
Yeah, so my favorite interview question that I ask in every single interview that I have, like interviewing someone, is always, did you use AI to prepare for this interview? And pretty much if they tell me the answer is no, it's a non-starter. Because either one, you're probably lying to me, and you think that's the right answer, or two, like you really didn't, that's just mind-boggling. You didn't like use research from AI. It's so powerful for that use case. And that normally then leads into a good conversation about where they think AI is going, what other use cases they have for that same path. But I'll harp on something you said earlier. I do think accounting transformation has been like a buzzword for at least 10 years now. Digital transformation, yeah. And so it's a lot of that same skill set. And anytime that I'm interviewing and I'm trying to even upskill my team, like I really try to lean into. I'm a bit of a weirdo that I love system implementations. Like I love them. It's like one of my passions is to be able to implement a new system, map it all out, see how it works, and like really get in there and understand exactly what it can do and maximize it. And I will always want to find team members that are like that. Because even if it's not a system implementation, there's probably all kinds of stuff in your tech stack that you are not maximizing. I know I'm not. And there's so many things out there that you can unlock for that. And so I always work with teammates that are kind of pushing it that extra level. Another thing I do with my teammates to try to drive this, especially on the GL side, or really just the whole accounting side. But we run sprints with our teams to where we have a sprint. It's 1 week, once a month, during kind of like the downtime between you finally are done with close and you're about to start all your roll forwards. And force them, for lack of a better word, to identify something in their processes that they want to improve. It might be tiny, sometimes brilliant ideas come out of that, sometimes they last many sprints, but it just kind of keeps that innovative mindset and keeps them trying to think forward about how they can keep progressing everything that they're working on, and especially where they're the subject matter experts. Like, I never want to go to someone and say, hey, you're doing it this way, I think you should do it this way. I want them to tell me that. Like, they are my subject matter experts. They know that process inside and out. They're going to be the ones that can identify those really meaningful changes. And so I'm always trying to drive that kind of ownership and that understanding of that's what I expect the role to be, which I think is a little bit above what a lot of people expect accountants to do. And some people don't take kindly to it. Some people really thrive in that environment, and that's kind of the person that I'm always looking for.
It's funny when you said, it sounds like you're basically having a monthly hackathon, so it's like day 11 through 15 of your close is now a hackathon, and everything's kind of buttoned up in the first 2 weeks. Yeah. No, there's no chill. It's funny though, because there's been a couple of calls that I've been on lately with teams who I can tell, because it's like 11 people on an intro call, and I can tell that they are in like one of their like annual hackathons, and they're like, okay, so what is the price? And can we like adopt this software now for our hackathon? And I'm like, that's not how you do this. But it's been pretty interesting to see how teams are trying to adopt it. They're fumbling in the dark a little bit, but I think that's a really good way to like get teams into it. It's like, hey, we got a few days here, like, let's like think critically and have some fun. Got some harder?
I think to